The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was filled with angry voices. Representatives from dozens of alien species sat in their floating chairs, all talking at once. Their words echoed off the crystal walls, creating a noise that hurt the ears. In the back corner, Ambassador Jiwan sat alone. She wore the simple blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. Her hands rested quietly on her lap as she watched the chaos unfold. She had seen this coming for months. The tall, snake-like Vorthok delegate raised his scaly arm. "The humans are too violent," he hissed. "They solve every problem with weapons and war." A crystal being from the Nexari worlds sparkled as it spoke. "They expand too fast. They take planets without asking permission from the proper authorities. They refuse to follow our ancient customs," complained a floating gas creature from the ethereal collective. "They have no respect for tradition." Chairman Vextar, a being that looked like a giant insect with too many eyes, clicked his mandibles for silence. The room slowly grew quiet. His voice was cold and formal. "We have discussed the human problem for many cycles," he announced. "Today we make our final decision." Jiwan felt her stomach tighten, but her face showed nothing. She had been Earth's voice in this place for 5 years. She had watched the other species slowly turn against humanity. At first, they had welcomed humans into the galaxy. Earth's people were new and interesting, but as humans spread to more worlds and grew stronger, the welcome had turned cold. "The evidence is clear," Vexitar continued. "Humans are a danger to galactic peace. They start fights. They ignore our laws. They think they are better than species that have existed for millions of years." The Brutaxian war chief, a massive creature covered in bone armor, pounded his fist on his chair. "They beat us in the border wars. No young species should be able to defeat the mighty Brutaxians." "They steal our trade routes," added a merchant from the Traders Guild. "Their ships are faster and cheaper. It's not fair." Jiwan almost smiled at that. Human ships were better because human engineers worked harder and smarter. But she kept her thoughts to herself. Chairman Vextar's many eyes focused on different parts of the hall. "Therefore, the Galactic Council has reached its decision. Humanity will be quarantined to their home system. All trade with humans stops immediately. All technology sharing ends today. All communication with Earth is forbidden." The hall erupted in cheers and applause. Aliens clicked, buzzed, roared, and sang their approval. Some of them looked at Jiwan with satisfaction, waiting to see her beg or cry or get angry. Instead, Jiwan stood up slowly. She smoothed down her uniform and picked up her datapad. The hall gradually grew quiet as everyone watched her. "Very well," she said in a calm voice that carried clearly through the chamber. "Humanity accepts your judgment." This was not what they expected. Chairman Vextar's antennae twitched with confusion. "You accept?" "Yes," Jiwan replied simply. "If this is what the Galactic Council wants, then this is what will happen." She walked toward the exit, her footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. Every alien eye followed her movement. They had prepared for screaming, for threats, for desperate bargaining. They had not prepared for quiet acceptance. At the door, Jiwan turned back one last time. "I will inform Earth of your decision immediately. All human personnel will begin withdrawal within 48 hours. Good day." The door closed behind her with a soft whisper. The hall stayed silent for a long moment. Then the aliens began to talk again, but their voices were uncertain now. Word spread quickly through the galaxy's communication networks. On Kepler Station, the largest trade hub in known space, human diplomat Minho received the message while having lunch. He put down his fork, paid his bill, and walked to his office. "Pack everything," he told his staff. "We're going home." His assistant, a young woman named Hyun, looked shocked. "Sir? What about the trade negotiations? The peace talks with the Rimworld Confederation?" "Cancelled," Minho said quietly. "All of it. We have 47 hours to be gone. On the agricultural world of New Harvest, human terraforming engineer Do-hyun was showing alien farmers how to use the new soil processors when his communicator beeped. He read the message twice, then looked up at the expectant faces around him. "I'm sorry," he said to the local governor, a plant-like being with purple leaves. "I have to leave." "Leave? But the growing season just started. We need your machines." Do-hyun was already walking toward his equipment. "The machines stay. The manuals are in your computer systems. Good luck." The plant governor's leaves rustled with panic. "But we don't understand how they work. You promised to teach us." "That was before," Do-hyun replied, not looking back. Across the galaxy, the same scene played out hundreds of times. Human doctors left their hospitals in the middle of surgeries, training local replacements in rushed sessions. Human teachers uploaded their lesson plans and walked out of classrooms full of confused alien students. Human engineers shut down construction projects and handed over incomplete blueprints. On the merchant vessel Golden Star, Captain Sujin was negotiating a cargo contract when her first officer whispered the news in her ear. She stood up immediately. "I'm afraid our business is concluded," she told the alien trader. "But we haven't agreed on the price yet." "There will be no price. There will be no trade. Excuse me." The trader watched in amazement as the human crew began preparing for departure. They moved with efficient purpose, like a machine that had suddenly been switched off. In the outer rim, human peacekeeping forces began pulling back to their ships. Pirates and raiders watched from hidden bases as the humans abandoned their patrol routes. Some of the braver criminals began making plans. The strangest thing was how quietly it all happened. No human complained or argued. No one demanded explanations or begged for second chances. They just left. On Earth, in a secure facility buried. Deep under the mountains of Korea, a group of humans sat around a conference table. At the head of the table sat Captain Hyun-woo, a man whose calm eyes had seen too much of the galaxy's politics. "Phase 1 is complete," reported his aide, a young officer named Jimin. "All personnel are withdrawing according to schedule. No incidents." "Good," Hyun-woo said. "How long before they realize what they've done?" An older woman at the table, Dr. Yuna, pulled up holographic charts. "Our economic models suggest 6 months for the first major failures, 1 year before critical system breakdowns, 2 years before they start to panic." "And our projects?" Hyun-woo asked. "Proceeding on schedule. The orbital platforms will be ready in 18 months. The new propulsion systems are testing well. We'll be ready long before they are." Hyun-woo nodded slowly. "Then we wait. And we build. And when they finally realize what they've lost, we'll be ready to show them what they never really had." Outside, the stars looked down on a galaxy that was about to learn a very expensive lesson about taking things for granted. 6 months had passed since the humans left. Chairman Vexitar sat in his private office, reading reports that made his stomach hurt. The numbers were all wrong. Everything was falling apart, and he could not understand why. The first problem started on Altair 7th. The Nexari crystal mines had been producing rare metals for over 1,000 years. The crystals grew deep underground in perfect patterns that never changed. But 3 months ago, the tunnels started collapsing. The Nexari engineers insisted their mining techniques were flawless. They had used the same methods for centuries. But the human consultant who had visited the mines 2 years ago had made some suggestions. Small changes to the support beams, new ways to check for stress fractures. The Nexari had thought these changes were unnecessary, but they had kept them anyway. Now, without humans to maintain the new systems, everything was breaking down. A soft chime announced a visitor. Counselor entered the office. The economics expert looked tired and worried. His usually perfect green skin had turned a sickly yellow color. "The reports from the Kepler trade route," Ralthek said, placing a data crystal on the desk. "It's worse than we thought." Vexatar activated the crystal. Holographic charts filled the air around his desk. Red numbers blinked like warning lights. Trade volume was down 40%. Shipping delays were up 300%. 12 major corporations had gone bankrupt. "How is this possible?" Vextar asked. "The humans only ran a few small shipping companies." Ralthek shook his head. "We were wrong about that. Human companies handled the logistics for almost everything. They didn't own the cargo, but they managed the schedules, the routes, the loading systems. When they left, the whole network fell apart. On Kepler Station, Station Master Gorvak was having the worst day of his very long life. 3 more ships had crashed into each other in the docking bays. The automated systems that had worked perfectly for months were suddenly making mistakes. "What changed?" he demanded of his chief engineer. "Nothing," the engineer insisted. "We're using the same programs, the same procedures." But something had changed. The human technician who had updated the docking software was gone. He had left detailed manuals, but the manuals assumed the reader understood basic orbital mechanics. Most aliens had relied on their computers for that knowledge for so long that they had forgotten the basics. Without humans to fix the small problems became big problems. Big problems became disasters. On the agricultural world of New Harvest, Governor Thys stood in what had once been a thriving farm. The soil processors that Do-Yun had installed were silent and broken. The purple leaves on Thys's body drooped with sadness. "The machines stopped working last month," reported the local engineer, a young plant being named Corell. "We tried to fix them using the manuals the human left, but we don't understand the technical language." Thys walked over to one of the broken processors. The machine was the size of a small building, designed to turn dead soil into rich farmland. But now its metal surface was covered with rust and damage. "What about the backup systems?" Thys asked. "We can't find them. The human mentioned backup systems in his notes, but we don't know where they are or how to activate them." The food shortage was beginning. Without the soil processors, crop yields had dropped by 60%. Other agricultural worlds were reporting similar problems. The galaxy's food supply was in danger. In the Vorthak military headquarters, General Krax stared at his broken weapons in rage and confusion. The Vorthak were known throughout the galaxy as the finest warriors. Their weapons were feared by all enemies. But now their weapons were failing. Plasma rifles overheated and exploded. Warship cannons fired in the wrong directions. Battle armor leaked and broke down in combat. "How did this happen?" Krax roared at his chief weapons engineer. The engineer, a smaller Vorthak named Drex, cowered before his general's anger. "Sir, we copied our weapon designs from captured human technology years ago. We reverse-engineered their systems and made them our own." So we never understood how they really worked. We just copied the parts we could see. The humans must have built-in safety systems and maintenance protocols that we never found. Without regular updates from human systems, our weapons are breaking down. Krax's scales turned dark red with fury. "Are you telling me that our mighty military depends on human technology?" Drex nodded miserably. "Not just us, sir. Intelligence reports suggest most of the galaxy's weapons are based on human designs. The humans have been sharing their technology for years, but they never shared the complete plans. Meanwhile, in the Deep Space Monitoring Station at the edge of the Sol system, alien sensors detected something that made no sense. Massive construction projects were happening around Earth's sun. Huge structures that defied easy explanation. The sensor operator, a floating jellyfish-like creature named Blex, called his supervisor immediately. "Sir, you need to see this." Supervisor Yendak floated over to the display screen. What he saw made his transparent body flicker with worry. The humans weren't just hiding in their solar system, they were building something big. Those structures, Yendak whispered. They're larger than anything in our databases. What do you think? They're building? Blex asked. I don't know, but it doesn't look like the work of a species that's been defeated and quarantined. On Earth, in the hidden command center under the Korean mountains, Captain Hyunwoo reviewed the intelligence reports flowing in from across the galaxy. Each report brought news of systems failing, economies crashing, and alien governments struggling with problems they didn't understand how to solve. Phase 2 is proceeding perfectly, reported his aide Jimin. The infrastructure failures are happening exactly as Dr. Yuna predicted. Dr. Yuna looked up from her workstation, where holographic displays showed the progress of humanity's secret projects. The aliens never realized how much they depended on us. We weren't just participants in their economy. We were the foundation it was built on. What about their attempts to contact us? Hyunwoo asked. 17 different species have sent diplomatic messages to the Sol system boundary, Jimin replied, all requesting trade discussions or technical assistance. We're ignoring them as ordered. Hyunwoo nodded with satisfaction. Let them wait. Let them see what their galaxy looks like without human involvement. Outside the Earth's atmosphere, massive orbital platforms continued their construction. These weren't weapons or defensive systems. They were something far more ambitious. Factories that could build entire worlds, energy collectors that could power civilizations, research stations that pushed the boundaries of known science. The humans had spent decades sharing their simpler technologies with the galaxy. They had let aliens think they understood human capabilities, but the truth was that humanity had been holding back. The technology they shared was like giving calculators to people who needed to learn advanced mathematics. Now, free from the need to pretend they were just another species struggling to survive, humans were finally building the future they had always envisioned. Dr. Yuna pulled up a timeline on her display. Estimated time until complete galactic economic collapse? 18 months, her assistant replied. Maybe less if the food shortages get worse. And our projects? The new propulsion. Systems will be ready in 12 months. The orbital habitats in 14 months. The deep space exploration fleets in 16 months. Hyunwoo smiled coldly. Perfect timing. By the time they're ready to admit they made a mistake, we'll be ready to show them what they really lost. In the Great Council chambers, Chairman Vextar called for an emergency session. The once proud alien representatives looked tired and worried. Their perfect galactic civilization was falling apart, and none of them knew how to fix it. The galaxy was learning a hard lesson about the difference between dependence and cooperation. 2 years had passed since the humans disappeared from galactic civilization. The galaxy was no longer the same place. Where once there had been order and prosperity, now there was chaos and fear. Chairman Vextar stood before the emergency assembly of the Galactic Council. His once proud bearing was gone. His insect-like body sagged with exhaustion and worry. Around him, the great chamber that had once held representatives from over 300 worlds now had barely 50 delegates present. The Serenari Collective has withdrawn from the council, he announced, his voice hollow. They cite economic collapse and social disorder. The remaining delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Everyone knew the Serenari were not the first to leave. The elegant, art-loving species had built their entire civilization around cultural exchange and beauty. But without human artists, musicians, and writers to trade with, their economy had crumbled. What was their excuse this time? Asked Councillor Ralthek, though he already knew the answer. They claim we never told them how much their cultural programs depended on human participation, Vextar replied. Apparently, 60% of their most popular art forms were developed in collaboration with human creators. In the back of the chamber, a new delegate raised her hand. She represented the Outer Rim worlds, planets that had never been important enough to have a voice in the council before. Now they were some of the few worlds that still functioned properly. With respect, "Chairman," she said, "the Outer Rim Confederation is also considering withdrawal." Vextar's antenna twitched with alarm. On what grounds? Our worlds were never part of the core economic system. We traded directly with humans for basic supplies and protection services. When the humans left, we learned to take care of ourselves. But now we're being attacked every day by pirates and raiders from the core worlds. The species that used to be civilized are turning into criminals. This was the truth that no one wanted to speak aloud. The Galactic Council's civilization had been like a beautiful building with rotten foundations. When the humans left, the foundations crumbled, and now the whole structure was falling down. The Kepler trade route, which had carried goods and wealth across the galaxy for thousands of years, was now a highway for pirates. Without human patrol ships to keep order, criminal gangs had taken over entire star systems. The Brutaxian Empire, once feared for its military discipline, had split into dozens of warring clans. Their weapons had stopped working properly, and without human tactical advisors secretly helping their strategies, they had forgotten how to fight effectively. Even worse, the food crisis was spreading. Agricultural worlds that had depended on human soil processors and farming techniques were producing barely enough food to feed their own populations. Worlds that had specialized in manufacturing or mining were starting to starve. On the crystal world of Nexar Prime, the situation had become desperate. The great crystal spires that had grown for millions of years were cracking and falling. Without the maintenance systems that human engineers had quietly installed, the planet's ecosystem was collapsing. Crystal Elder Veltar called an emergency meeting of the Nexari Council. His crystalline body, once bright and clear, was now cloudy with stress. "We must contact the humans," he announced to the shocked assembly. "Our world is dying." "But the quarantine order," protested a younger council member. "If we break the quarantine, the Galactic Council will punish us." Veltar's light flickered with bitter laughter. "What council? Half the member worlds have withdrawn. The other half can't even keep their own planets running. The quarantine order is meaningless now." Similar conversations were happening across the galaxy. World after world was realizing that their survival depended on getting the humans back. But there was one problem. Nobody knew if the humans were even alive anymore. For 2 years, the Sol system had been completely silent. No ships entered or left. No communication signals came out. Long-range sensors showed massive construction activity, but no one could tell what was being built. Some aliens whispered that the humans had destroyed themselves in a civil war. Others suggested they had fled to another galaxy. The most frightening theory was that they were still there, building weapons to take revenge on the galaxy that had rejected them. In the hidden base on Earth's moon, General Tai-Hoon reviewed the latest intelligence reports. His aide, a young officer named Jimin, placed a datapad on the desk with a satisfied smile. "Sir, the Vorthak delegation has been detected at the edge of our solar system. They've been waiting there for 3 days, requesting permission to communicate." Tae-Hoon nodded slowly. The Vorthak were the species that had complained loudest about human violence. Now they were begging to talk. Let them wait longer, he decided. "What about the other species?" 17 different delegations are waiting at our border. The Nexari, the Serenari, even the Ethereal Collective. They're all requesting emergency aid or trade agreements. And our response? Complete silence, as ordered. On the dark side of the moon, construction continued day and night. Massive shipyards stretched across the lunar surface, protected by energy fields that made them invisible to outside sensors. Inside the yards, human workers and advanced robots built vessels that had never been seen before. These weren't warships, though they were certainly powerful enough to destroy fleets. They weren't cargo ships, though they could carry entire cities. They were something new, something that represented humanity's vision of what space travel could become. Dr. Yuna walked through the main assembly hall, where a ship the size of a small moon was taking shape. Its hull gleamed with metals that didn't exist in nature, forged in zero-gravity furnaces that operated at temperatures hotter than stars. "How much longer?" she asked the chief engineer. "6 months for this one," Engineer Sunho replied. "The smaller ships will be ready sooner. And the new technology?" Sunho smiled proudly. "The faster-than-light communication system is working perfectly. We can now talk instantly across the galaxy without using the old hyperspace networks. The matter converters are exceeding all expectations, and the artificial gravity systems—" He paused dramatically. "We can create pocket dimensions now, small universes that exist inside our ships." Dr. Yuna nodded with satisfaction. For decades, humans had shared their simpler technologies with the galaxy. They had given aliens better computers, more efficient engines, improved weapons, but they had never shared their truly advanced research. The galaxy thought human technology was only slightly better than their own. They had no idea that humans had been working on problems that most species couldn't even imagine. In the command center deep under the Korean mountains, Captain Hyunwoo watched a holographic display that showed the entire galaxy. Red zones marked areas where civilizations had collapsed. Yellow zones showed species in crisis. Green zones indicated the few worlds that were still stable. Most of the map was red. "Phase 3 is complete," reported his assistant. "The galactic infrastructure has reached critical failure point. Estimated time until total collapse, 6 months. And our readiness level? We'll be ready in 4 months. All ships, all systems, all personnel." Hyunwoo studied the map for a long moment. Soon, very soon, it would be time to show the galaxy what humanity had really learned during their exile. The species that had rejected them as violent and primitive were about to discover just how much they had underestimated human capabilities. The galaxy had pressed the wrong button when they quarantined humanity. Now they would learn what the right button could have accomplished. Chairman Vextar had never felt so small in his entire life. He stood on the bridge of the council ship Galactic Unity, staring at the view screen that showed the edge of the Sol system. Behind him stood the representatives of 12 desperate species, all hoping that humanity might save their dying civilizations. The journey to Earth had taken 3 months. 3 months of watching their galaxy fall apart while they traveled through space, begging a species they had once rejected to hear their pleas for help. "Sir," the ship's communications officer reported, "we're detecting massive energy readings from the inner system. Whatever the humans are building, it's enormous." Vextar's many eyes focused on the tactical display. The readings were impossible. No known technology could generate that much power without destroying itself. Yet the readings were steady and controlled, as if the humans had somehow tamed forces that other species couldn't even understand. "Send the communication request again," he ordered. "Sir, this is the 100th time we've sent it. They're not responding." Before Vextar could reply, every screen on the bridge flickered and changed. A new image appeared. A human woman in a crisp military uniform. Her face was calm and professional, but her eyes held the coldness of deep space. "This is Admiral So-young of the Earth Defense Forces," she announced. "You have entered the Sol system without permission." Vextar stepped forward quickly, his diplomatic training taking over despite his fear. "Admiral, I am Chairman Vextar of the Galactic Council. We request an urgent meeting with your leadership." "The Galactic Council," Admiral So-young repeated, her voice flat and emotionless. "The same council that declared humanity a threat to galactic peace. The same council that quarantined us to our home system." "Yes, but—" "You wished us to remain in our system," the Admiral interrupted. "We have remained. What more do you want?" The view screen changed to show the external view of their ship. Vexatar gasped at what he saw. A vessel had appeared beside them, so large that their entire fleet could have fit inside its cargo bay. The ship's hull was smooth and seamless, made from materials that seemed to bend light around them. "That ship," whispered the Nexari delegate, his crystal body flickering with amazement. "It's impossible. Nothing that large could move through space." Admiral So-young's voice continued calmly. "This is the New Soul, one of our smaller diplomatic vessels. You will follow us to the meeting point. Any attempt to deviate from the assigned course will be considered hostile." The Council fleet had no choice but to follow. As they moved deeper into the Sol system, the aliens saw wonders that challenged everything they thought they knew about technology. Massive ring worlds orbited Jupiter, each one larger than most planets. The rings sparkled with cities and forests, rotating slowly to provide gravity for billions of inhabitants. Energy collectors surrounded the sun like a glowing web, harvesting power on a scale that dwarfed entire star systems. Construction platforms stretched across the asteroid belt, building ships that looked more like living creatures than machines. Some vessels were growing rather than being assembled, their hulls extending and shaping themselves according to designs that seemed to exist in dimensions the aliens couldn't see. "How long have they been building all this?" asked the Brutaxian delegate, his bone armor trembling with fear. 2 years, Vextar replied quietly. "They've accomplished more in 2 years than most species achieve in centuries." The New Soul led them to a space station that hung in orbit around Earth. The station was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Its design was both artistic and functional, with flowing curves that somehow managed to look both peaceful and powerfully defended. As their ships docked, Vextar felt his confidence crumbling completely. Everything about this place spoke of a civilization that had moved far beyond the simple species he remembered. The humans had not been hiding in defeat. They had been growing. Admiral So-young met them at the docking bay. She was tall and elegant, wearing a uniform that seemed to be made from liquid starlight. Behind her stood an honor guard of human soldiers whose equipment looked like it belonged in a fantasy rather than reality. "Follow me," she said simply. They walked through corridors that defied physics. The walls showed scenes from across the galaxy, forests that grew on planets light years away, oceans that reflected alien suns, cities that floated in the clouds of gas giants. But these weren't recordings or displays. Somehow the walls were showing real-time images from across the universe. "How is this possible?" the ethereal collective representative whispered. "Faster-than-light observation systems," Admiral So-young replied without looking back. "One of our simpler innovations?" They entered a conference room where 3 humans waited. Vextar recognized one of them, G1, the former ambassador who had walked out of the council chamber 2 years ago. But she looked different now, more confident, more powerful. The man at the head of the table stood as they entered. He was tall and calm, with eyes that seemed to see everything at once. "I am Coordinator Hyun-woo," he said. "Welcome to the Sol system." Vextar found his voice. "Coordinator on behalf of the Galactic Council. I must express our amazement at what you've accomplished. Your technological advances are remarkable." "Are they?" Hyun-woo asked mildly. "We've simply been working with the tools and knowledge we've always had." The third human, an older woman who introduced herself as Dr. Yuna, activated a holographic display that filled the room. It showed technical specifications that made the alien sensors overload trying to process the information. "Faster-than-light communication without hyperspace networks," she explained casually. "Matter conversion at the quantum level. Artificial, gravity manipulation. Pocket dimension creation. Sustainable fusion reactions that can power solar systems." Each item on her list represented technology that was centuries beyond what the galaxy's greatest scientists had ever imagined. "These innovations," Dr. Yuna continued, "are based on research we completed decades ago. We've been sharing our simpler technologies with the galaxy, but we kept our advanced research to ourselves." "Why?" asked the Serenari delegate, her musical voice cracking with emotion. Coordinator Hyunwoo smiled sadly. Because we wanted to be accepted as equals, not feared as superiors. We gave you technology that would help you grow and learn. We hoped that someday you would be ready for true partnership. But the council called us violent and primitive, Admiral So-young added. You decided we were too dangerous to exist among civilized species. So we respected your wishes and removed ourselves from your civilization. Vexatar felt sick. We made a mistake, a terrible mistake. The galaxy is falling apart without human involvement. Species are starving. Civilizations are collapsing. We need your help. Need our help. Hyun-woo repeated thoughtfully. The same help you rejected 2 years ago? Please, Vexatar begged, his pride finally breaking completely. Name your terms. Anything. The galaxy cannot survive without humanity. Coordinator Hyun-woo looked at his colleagues. Admiral So-young nodded slightly. Dr. Yuna smiled. Ambassador, Ji-won, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. The galaxy, she said quietly, will have to prove it deserves our participation. The room fell silent as the aliens realized that everything had changed. The species they had dismissed as primitive now held the power to save or destroy galactic civilization, and humanity was no longer interested in begging for acceptance. They would have to earn it. Chairman Vextar waited in the silence that followed Ambassador Ji-won's words. The conference room aboard the human space station felt like a courtroom where he was being judged for crimes he was only beginning to understand. Coordinator Hyunwoo leaned back in his chair, studying the alien delegates with calm, patient eyes. You want to know our terms, he said finally. Yes, Vexatar replied, his voice barely above a whisper. Anything. The galaxy is dying without your help. Our terms are simple, Hyunwoo continued. The Galactic Council dissolves immediately. The system of species ranking by age and technological development ends forever. No more ancient wisdom and primitive newcomers. No more treating younger civilizations as children who need guidance from their elders. The ethereal collective representative, a floating cloud of gas and energy, flickered with distress. But we have governed the galaxy for millions of years. Our experience, your experience, Admiral So-young interrupted coldly, nearly destroyed galactic civilization in 2 years. Your ancient wisdom couldn't even keep the trade routes working without human help. Dr. Yuna activated another holographic display. Numbers and charts filled the air around the table. These statistics show the real structure of galactic civilization. Over the past 50 years, humans handled 87% of interstellar logistics. Human agricultural techniques fed 62% of the galaxy's population. Human technology powered 74% of manufacturing. Impossible, breathed the Nexari delegate. We never saw humans in those numbers. Because we worked through other species, Ambassador Ji-won explained. We gave our technology to aliens who then claimed it as their own innovation. We solved problems quietly, without demanding credit or recognition. We wanted to be helpful partners, not conquering overlords. Coordinator Hyunwoo stood and walked to the window that showed Earth spinning slowly below them. The new government will be called the Stellar Commonwealth. Every species that wants to join must contribute something valuable to the collective good. No more membership based on ancient bloodlines or traditional power. What kind of contributions? Asked the Brutaxian delegate nervously. Knowledge, resources, labor, innovation, art, anything that makes life better for everyone, Dr. Yuna replied. Species that only consume without giving back will not be welcome. And humanity? Vextar asked. What will be your role in this commonwealth? Founding members, Hyunwoo said simply. Equal partners with anyone who proves they deserve equality, the ECI. Room fell quiet again as the aliens processed this information. Finally, the Serenari delegate spoke up. What about species that refuse these terms? Admiral Soyoung's expression remained neutral. They are free to manage their own affairs. The Commonwealth will not force anyone to join. But the Commonwealth will also not provide aid or technology to species that choose isolation. That's the same punishment you gave us, Vextar realized. Exactly, Ambassador Jiwan said with a slight smile. The same quarantine you thought was appropriate for us. If species believe they can survive better alone, they're welcome to try. Over the following months, news of humanity's terms spread across the galaxy. The reaction was swift and decisive. Some species raged against the demands. The proud Vorthak Empire declared that they would never bow to human authority. Several ancient civilizations announced they would rather die than accept equality with younger species. Others saw the wisdom in humanity's proposal. The Outer Rim Confederation, which had never been powerful enough to have a real voice in the Old Council, immediately applied for Commonwealth membership. Their contribution was simple but valuable. They grew food using traditional methods that didn't depend on complex technology. The Kepler Station survivors, who had managed to keep their trade hub partially operational, offered their knowledge of interstellar commerce. Small species that had been ignored by the Old Council brought art, music, literature, and unique perspectives that enriched the growing Commonwealth culture. But the real test came when the Vorthak Empire, despite their public refusal, secretly sent ships toward human space. Their weapons were the finest their engineers could build. Their plan was simple: destroy humanity's space stations and force the galaxy back under traditional rule. The attack lasted exactly 4 minutes. Vorthak warships that could destroy planets found their weapons unable to penetrate human defensive systems. Their mighty battle fleet was disabled by technology they couldn't understand and captured by ships that moved too fast for their sensors to track. The captured Vorthak crews were treated well, given medical care, and sent home with a simple message: the Commonwealth defends itself but seeks no conquest. Choose your path wisely. After that demonstration, applications for Commonwealth membership increased dramatically. On the new Commonwealth Capital Station, built at the galaxy's center, Coordinator Hyun Woo stood in the main assembly hall. Around him, representatives from over 200 species worked together on projects that would have been impossible under the old system. Former Ambassador Jiwan, now Secretary General of the Stellar Commonwealth, approached with the day's reports. The agricultural crisis is ending, she reported. Human farming techniques combined with traditional methods from 40 different species have increased food production by 300%. The technology sharing programs, beyond our best projections. When species contribute their knowledge freely instead of hoarding it for advantage, innovation accelerates exponentially. Hyun Woo nodded with satisfaction. Through the great windows of the assembly hall, he could see ships from dozens of worlds working together on construction projects. Human vessels worked alongside alien craft, their crews learning from each other and building things that no single species could have accomplished alone. Any word from the holdout species? Jiwan consulted her datapad. The Nexari Crystal Empire is reconsidering. Their population is demanding Commonwealth membership after seeing the prosperity of worlds that joined. The ethereal collective is split. Half want to join, half want to maintain their ancient isolation. And the Vorthak? Still refusing publicly. But our intelligence suggests they're copying Commonwealth technologies as fast as they can. Eventually, they'll either join properly or fall so far behind that they become irrelevant. At that moment, a young officer approached with urgent news. "Sir, we're receiving a priority message from the Deep Space Exploration Fleet." "The Generation Ship Project?" Hyun Woo asked. "Yes, sir. They've found it. A galaxy beyond our own, showing signs of intelligent life. The long-range scouts report at least 50 different civilizations." Hyun Woo and Jiwan exchanged glances. Humanity's greatest ships, vessels capable of traveling between galaxies, had been searching for other forms of life beyond their local group of stars. Prepare a diplomatic mission, Hyunwoo ordered. Full Commonwealth representation. If we're going to meet new civilizations, we do it as a united galaxy, not as competing species. Later that evening, Hyunwoo stood alone on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. 2 years ago, humanity had been rejected as violent and primitive. Now they led a commonwealth that was stronger and more prosperous than the old Galactic Council had ever been. Ji-won joined him at the window. "Do you think we made the right choice?" she asked. "Accepting their rejection, I mean." Instead of fighting back, Hyunwoo smiled. "They pressed the wrong button when they quarantined us, but pressing the wrong button taught them what the right button could accomplish." Outside, ships from 100 worlds worked together under the light of distant stars, building a future that no single species could have imagined alone. The galaxy had learned that true strength came not from dominance, but from cooperation among equals, and in the depths of space, humanity's greatest vessels prepared to carry that lesson to the stars beyond.